Hello and welcome to the Doc Talk, a podcast in which we talk to doctors about their careers, their personal experiences, and a lot more. I'm your host, Amir Mian. So today, I am delighted, honored, and super excited to welcome our guest who's pediatric critical care physician, professor and chair of Department of Pediatrics, Associate Dean for Child Health, and Pediatrician-in-Chief at Arkansas Children's Hospital, Dr. Rick Barr. Welcome to the Doc Talk.
Thanks so much. I'm happy to be here.
So Rick, so earlier on you started your career with research, and you've had a very accomplished career specifically in translational aspect of research. So no question, basic science obviously is the building block and basic science is the foundation. So why do you think clinicians should be really excited about translational research, and why is that important in today?
Well, it's incredibly important today. I started off as a basic science researcher. In my fellowship and my early academic career, I was in basic science. And I remember a seminal conversation I was having with a mentor, faculty member who said, what research questions keep you up at night? I'm thinking, there isn't any research question that's keeping me up. It's my patients that are keeping me up. And I thought, I need to shift my focus towards clinical and translational research because that's where I could make an impact. And that subsequently developed into a very productive clinical and translational research career with some good mentors and research projects that were very collaborative. But it all came out of just being open to change and following your passion.
I mean, obviously, after all the research and translational aspect of research and everything else, then you move to the administrative side of medicine, and you on the way you completed MBA several years ago, and I think at the time it was relatively rare to find physicians with MBA, which obviously needs quite a bit of time and commitment and resources. So looking back, I mean, what value do you see for physicians with MBA, and how could it be leveraged for professional growth?
Yeah, it was incredibly important for me where I was in my career, entering an administrative capacity, being a physician-in-chief, pediatrician-in-chief, and chair of a department at the time. I was at the table with business people making important collaborative decisions on expansion and growth and capital, et cetera. I needed that business knowledge. So I basically I completed my MBA to get the knowledge so that I could participate at the table making important decisions for the future of child health.
Right. And then obviously that's all the language of finance and the basic management aspect that definitely would be helpful, right, if somebody were to pursue that way.
Incredibly helpful to be able to read a hospital balance sheet, look at the statement of cash flows and understand what that means and how it affects the day-to-day operations, which are so important for the faculty and physicians, for them to understand what goes in to delivery of healthcare.
Right, and obviously the business, the medicine, there is aspects of business side of medicine which is critically important for day-to-day operation. Right.
Absolutely, medicine is business. I mean, it truly is an art in many respects, and we like to preserve that. That is the doctor-patient relationship that really is a foundation of medicine, but it is a business, and you have to understand how the business operates to be successful and prepare for the future.
Right. So as department chair, you're both officially and unofficially mentor to all the faculty to facilitate everyone's professional growth and to promote their well-being. So I remember a couple of years back in 2017. So when you visited ACH for the first time, you inspired us. You definitely inspired me and challenged us all together collectively as physicians to be advocate, to be the champions, to be the leader. So for the benefit of audience in this day and age, I mean, what could we do collectively or individually, or what we should do to pursue those challenges?
Well, we have to be advocates for child health in any forum that where we're operating, and that's public, that's private, that's in the hospital, outside the hospital. So that's that's the first thing, is just always thinking how our actions and our words are are coalescing to improve child health.
Right.
As a department, I think one of the most important ways we can do that is mentoring and sponsoring other faculty. It's really important to pay it forward. So I've benefited from so much great mentoring over the years, and I really enjoy mentoring, but I really enjoy almost as much sponsoring.
Right.
And there is a difference there. Sponsoring means really making sure that those around you are have opportunities and are exposed to situations where they can grow that are somewhat outside of your control. It's not direct mentoring. And I think sponsorship is under-recognized and really, really important. It's something we can do to advocate for each other.
Right. So sponsorship would be also facilitate growth and open new opportunities and doors as well, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, so healthcare, our favorite topic of the day. So, the I've had interest in healthcare economics, and the data is really stunning. So, the cost of healthcare, coupled with the highest budget deficit in our history, it's fairly concerning, and it should be concerning to all of us because it's just not sustainable for too long. And despite the U.S. spending about 18.5% of our entire GDP on healthcare, I mean, we continue to struggle in outcomes in terms of population health. So, and our clinical training obviously does not address population health to the extent that it should, and neither does it specifically talk about social determinants of health, which are critical. So, do you think that is the weak link? And if so, what should we do to address it?
Well, it definitely is a weak link, and many of those factors are outside of our control.
Sure,
we know
yeah.
that genetics and delivery of medical care are actually a fairly small portion of health outcomes.
Right.
That social determinants are very, very impactful. And there are many reasons for that. I mean, tackling social determinants of health are hard, and it's long-term.
It is long-term.
We are on a short-term cycle in terms of our investments, in terms of what we focus on as a society, and definitely as a nation politically. So making those long-term investments that we won't see the payoff for 15, 20 years until a child becomes an adult, it is difficult. So, but the best way we can focus on that is to make sure we're advocating for important programs that affect social determinants of health. I've always said that probably one of the most impactful interventions we can do to affect health outcomes is make sure every child has access to early childhood education.
So true.
Because that definitely affects health outcomes. I think at Arkansas Children's, we're doing a great job of focusing on long-term health outcomes and how we can make an impact year over year.
One of the things which is, I'm sure you probably also noticed it as well, one of the things about medicine is, in contrast to other industries like, for example, IT, retail, and finance, we're typically slow adapters of technology. in a traditional healthcare system, we're sort of taught and trained on platforms, or sometimes even within boxes, not to be very actively, think outside the box sometimes, and to experiment with, quote and unquote, a new bug. Let's call it innovation and entrepreneurship. So, if a physician or if your faculty has that bug, what would you advise them? How should they chase that bug?
Well, I think innovation and entrepreneurship are becoming increasingly important and something that medicine hasn't particularly focused on in the past. Our training is very focused on avoiding failure.
Right.
We are preoccupied with failure. That's a characterization of a high reliability organization, is to be preoccupied with failure. To be innovative, and you have to be, ready and willing to fail, frequently and fast.
So true.
And so I think it requires a mind shift. We're trying to move in that direction. We actually have, as part of our new strategic plan, is to create a innovation and entrepreneurship center here at the Research Institute, where we can train people in that different mindset of really being innovative, and that involves trying new ideas and abandoning them quickly if they're not going to work.
Yeah, no, I think that your point is so well taken. The mindset to be willing to fail because that's what it's all about, and then to try something different, and sometimes even experiment because that's just the name of the game, I guess.
It is.
Let's talk about social media. So, these are obviously challenging times. They have brought us together virtually. Zoom is all over the place. While we have drifted apart socially and even otherwise. And there's always this are missing out on the contact and the touch. So with professional platforms such as, for example, LinkedIn and Twitter, I mean, what value proposition do you see in these platforms for professionals and for physicians?
Well, I think it's incredibly important to be on social media for several reasons. One, we have a message to tell,
Absolutely.
and we have the background and the experience to deliver positive messages about child health. So that's one key reason. Another key reason, frankly, is that if we're not on social media, who's going to be on there?
So true.
And
Yeah.
we need to make sure that we are occupying the positive space in terms of communicating about child health.
Right.
And so
right.
I think it's really, really important. Even though I'm on a lot of social media platforms, I'm not that comfortable with social media. I've surrounded myself with some really good people who can help create that content, et cetera. But it's incredibly important to have that social media presence.
Right. Right. And obviously, if we don't come in, then somebody else will, and who knows what their message will be, and it may or may not be it may not be for the benefit of kids and for medicine in general.
Absolutely.
I usually have a quote of the day. I sometimes need it for myself. I'm one of those who sometimes need a little bit of a quote and unquote push to get things done, and I guess we all need it one way or the other. So one of my favorite quotes recently has been, and I came across, and I don't recall who's it from, but what it says is, if you change nothing, nothing will change. So the question is, do you have any favorite inspirational quotes, and what do they mean to you?
Yeah, several, but I'm really into strategic planning. I think that's the core of any department or unit, is to make sure that you're constantly planning and executing on a strategic plan
Right.
that is well founded. So one of my favorite phrases is failing to plan is planning to fail.
So true.
You really need to plan effectively, and then be able to, any strategic plan needs to be an active living document. You need to be constantly looking at that and figuring out how you're implementing. And if not, why? It needs to be a living document.
And obviously, that's really important for the destiny of any institution, because without strategy, I mean, the future is so unknown.
It is, and planning for rough times,
Sure,
like we're going through
absolutely.
now.
Yeah.
It's being able. You'll never be able to predict what's going to happen, but being able to plan for instability and how you would react and make accommodations is really important.
So for the burnout, yeah, I know it's something that you're interested in, and you've had this passion for physician well-being, and the thing that we all worry about is the physician burnout was always was for quite some time was at a historic high rate during the pre-COVID times, and now we're all collectively worried that it's likely to reach new heights, new peaks, and even get worse after COVID from all the emotional trauma and overwork. So, what are the top 3 pieces of advice that you think are imperative for us to do so that we take care of ourselves as clinicians, as frontline workers, and also to remain productive professionals and enjoy life fulfillment?
Great question. We have so many ways to be connected today, and many of our meetings, celebrations, et cetera, have moved to electronic platforms like Zoom, and which are we're seeing new value in some of those ways. But I'm concerned about social distancing. A colleague recently told me we should not call it social distancing; we should call it physical distancing.
So true, yeah.
And be socially connected, because we're we're social animals. We need that social connection. And so I would encourage people to stay socially connected and do it through these electronic, platforms where you can often be more connected than you have been with people over time and with your colleagues. So, virtual happy hours or, just ways to stay socially connected are incredibly important. Separate from that, I think, as you mentioned, burnout can be accentuated in times like this. So taking care of, oneself and others, making sure you're getting appropriate, sleep, eating, exercise, and just make sure we're all taking care of ourselves so we can help take care of others during these times of stress.
And then obviously, so within the same topic, so are there any system-wide support systems or support systems basically that if somebody is in need or if we feel that somebody needs some help, how should they proceed to get that help?
Yeah, we have a rapidly developing wellness program here at Arkansas Children's that I think that faculty and staff can avail themselves of those resources. Employee assistance. This is a stressful time, and I've actually had a number of conversations with faculty recently where I think I was able to be helpful, but I referred them to counseling and other resources just because the stress is at a new level right now. And it both creates worry, but I think this is an opportunity where we can pull together and help each other and make sure that we're all getting that level of care as a community.
So Rick, thank you so much for your time today. This podcast has been a team effort, and my colleague Justin Criddle and I are thankful to all our audience for listening. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe. And if you've already subscribed, thank you. I believe you'll find value in this podcast, which is unique to highlight physician careers as they share their valuable life lessons that could connect us professionally and guide us to grow collectively. Until we meet again next time, be well, stay safe.